I hear you. I've been in crypto while working a full-time job, and now it is my full-time job, and it does have that kind of level of excitement, and I'm really enjoying it. So going back to projects you guys are working on together, let's talk about Nouns.sh. You guys won a mandated prop house round for an alternative client. So I would love to hear both of your experiences about your opinion on Nouns, coming to the community about Nouns, winning the prop house round, and where is this project that you guys got funding for at today?
Hab brought me to the community. I remember a year ago, he sent me this link to this project. And at that point, we're in the NFT summer, NFT projects were crazy. And he sends me the link of this pixel art that is stored on chain, which I thought is cool. But then each one goes for 100 plus ETH. And I was like, what is this? But I guess Hab can talk more about his involvement and how he got to the prop house stuff that we've built.
Yeah, I feel like I've been following Nouns for a long time. When we originally were exploring generative or NFT stuff in general, I think the concept of the daily auction that went forever with no cap was super compelling. And then to see the price and then actually take off was a whole nother thing, piqued my interest. But I don't know, I think the concept has just been super appealing to me. And I think we've talked a few times in the past, but I've always been looking for an angle for some way to do design for Nouns or help out a lot of the prop house stuff. The smaller rounds, I don't really feel like they fit my skill set. I could do some design work or couldn't really ship that because like I said earlier, I can do some engineering, but I don't feel comfortable enough building anything from scratch. And the mandate round came along and that seemed to fit our skill set really well. Both Winter and I, we've been talking about Nouns or just looking for some projects in general. And I think this came at a perfect time when Winter was moving into his freelance career off of full time. And it seemed like a good opportunity for us to put our hat in the ring, see what we could do. Because I have always been really keen, like I said, to build something for Nouns, and thinking about a different front end or a different way to serve the auction had been really compelling. I think that plus some aspect of DAO management had kind of piqued my interest. And at the time, Little Nouns had been super hot, and I had been spending a lot of time staring at the auction cadence of Little Nouns and looking at people's wallets and what they were doing and their max bidding history and all that shit. So it felt like it was really compelling for that scene. It might work out for the OG Nouns, and I think that's where a lot of the design aspirations came from.
On the execution side of this was super funny because when we talked to a few Nouns people about the scope of the project and what they kind of expect of it, it was clear that this is something very different from a traditional freelance work or some other things. Because in freelance or consulting, you would try to get into what is the success and how do they measure the success and try to deliver something that fits this criteria with your own take on it. And, you would have a much more defined scope versus Nouns was hey, we kind of want to attract talented builders to the space. Here is a small funding for you to work on this for some time, and then just do what you think is right. And it felt very awkward at first. I remember catching up with Hab after our meeting with some of the Nouns people, and we're what do they want? What do we do? Well, it's I don't know. We just do what we feel is right. So that's kind of what we did. Hab took lead on the design side of things. And we already had some concept of an idea of a professional focused interface where instead of making it pretty and animated, etc., we focused more on the utility and show as much data as you can fit. It could be confusing at first, but as you get around, you kind of get a sense of the more global things, better, higher level outlook at how the auctions go around. And then on the engineering side, the thing that struck me was, hey, currently Nouns have one front end. It's nouns.wtf. Obviously, the contracts are all permissionless. You could interact with them. But if the main website goes down or Infura node that powers it goes down, the auction will stall because most people go through that. So to me, as a project's health depends on this critical piece of infrastructure, it felt very obvious that, hey, our work should be to diversify Nouns' commitments to technology and make sure that we have something that first is professional, looks good and works great, but also something that can take that edge off just having a single website. So my core assumption going into the engineering work was hey, how can we design the architecture such that it's very resilient? So if Infura goes down, it switches to some other providers. It doesn't depend on third-party APIs to get this data because the third party's API can always go down or cut the access off, etc. make it as fast as possible, as real time as possible, allow the architecture to show mempool transactions as they are going in, etc. So I've spent a bunch of time establishing this thing, making sure that the app can be deployed to any service provider and is not married to Vercel or something else, and that it's resilient and real time, and it has the data locally in the database itself that can run interesting queries, etc. So a lot of that foundational work was really fun to establish. We've obviously squeezed in a few UX details because, we cannot not to. And then another aspect that I have explored on this funding as well is Autobidder. Something that feels really clear is the future is like a bot building for you and trying to get the best price of noun as possible. You can see that the NAV, Noun's average value, is currently at 63 ETH. That means that if we take all the treasury, divide by number of nouns we have, we end up with like around 63 ETH. And yesterday, a noun sold for 56, which is way under that utility value. So I've built a bot. Currently, it's just using my budget, which is not enough to win a noun, but it can automatically place a bid at a specific time that you configure, and it can cost efficiently acquire a noun because it only bids the minimum amount. It's also permissionless in a way that when you put the funds in that bot, there is no way for us to extract those funds. There is a smart contract that governs the access, etc. So this is a proof of concept. It's been peer-reviewed by my more experienced Solidity friends, etc. And we feel like it's a good mechanic for other DAOs to acquire nouns, or for some whales to acquire nouns if they don't care about traits or something else, that they just say, I want to deploy 200 ETH into nouns and try to get me the best price possible in this time frame. So we feel like it's the future. If you look at the space overall with MEV and other things, this opportunity attracts bots and other automated solutions to the problem. So basically Nouns.sh started as these designs for data-packed nouns and then evolved into the resilient front-end and back-end plus the bot work that we have explored. I had a ton of fun doing this. Freedom of choosing our own adventure was really fun, and I feel like Nouns as an ecosystem would benefit from these tools, and we couldn't have promised these tools when we started. We have explored them and found them and worked on them as a process. This has been fun and working, and I feel like it's useful already. So yeah.
We should touch on the pick your own journey thing, because I think that was pretty novel for us. I remember early into the conversation when we were talking about doing the mandated round, it was like, oh yeah, you get a month, here's some funds, try building something in a month, and let us know sort of what comes out of it and like where you got. And I think we're so used to client work, we thought of this as client work, client schedule. We make a prop on Prop House. Funding closes, we win that, and it's like, cool, what are the check-ins in the next month? What are our deadlines? And like, what are we showing each couple of weeks as like a stand-up routine? I think that sort of was intimidating for us. Maybe not intimidating is the right word, but that made us hesitate a little bit just because of our timelines and how much we could commit right away to the project. But that's not really how it worked. It was more pick your own journey. You get funding and we expect you to show up and build something and produce from that, but it's more on your own timeline, and not a month from now that it's due. Is put a month into it and show us what you can do with that timeline. And I think that flexibility was really key for us to actually commit to this.
Exactly, yeah. And like with the typical client work, on the higher level, the clients don't know what they want, right? They hire you to figure out what they want, and you figure this out through dialogue. And you always have a stakeholder, like some CTO of a company wants you to like establish their smart contract team, right? Like, and they don't know what this means. So you talk to them and you like figure out what's the goals for the business and blah, blah, blah. And it's always a conversation. Versus with Nouns, it's a DAO, it's distributed, right? Like you can talk to people, individuals, but overall, there is no single stakeholder that holds the general sort of summarized opinion of a DAO. And it's not even feasible or economically, but also time commitment feasible to get an average understanding of who thinks what. So essentially, it ended up us trying to figure out what nouns need without actually talking to the noun stakeholder, right? We kind of followed our own nose. We built a UI that we are proud of, that we think shows a high level of things, but we also took some time to explore other things that we think would be very valuable to the project ecosystem as a whole. And that was pretty novel. That felt uncomfortable at first and then really fun towards the end. But also now in the client work, there is usually a handoff stuff where you like deliver something, give a report, or give a piece of code or architecture or anything that the clients accept, and it's like it feels like a completed transaction. Versus nouns, they're more open-ended. What happens next? Well, we don't know. Do we continue this exploration? Do we file for another round of funding or wrap this up and leave it to the community to develop further? It's not specified, right? And this is definitely novel to us.